this political season was like driven by podcasts. It's crazy to see how many people rely on podcasts for their knowledge, for their news, and then you could just lump that in together with social media. Shit's kind of crazy. I don't have a journalism degree. You know, I'm a doctor. I am telling people about what's going on with our taxes, what's going on with our finances, what's going on in the podcast. But like, am I necessarily an expert?
The thing with experts is, are experts really experts? Because these are just people who have opinions just like us. They have these ideas and people kind of run with them because they can relate or they have the same general idea as well. But an expert is not really an expert. It's just somebody who specializes in something.
If that's even the case.
Right.
Someone who can convince you that they are an expert. Folks, your exciting new medical career, it's just been hit with a serious illness or injury that stops you from earning a paycheck just when you need it most. Check out what Jamie Fleischner of Set for Life Insurance said back on episode 176 about having disability insurance early in your career.
The real reason to get it early on is really twofold. One is to protect your insurability. So if you are healthy and you can obtain the coverage, you also pre-approve yourself to be able to buy more in the future. So down the road, as your income does increase, you don't have to answer additional medical questions. All you have to do is show that your income has increased and you can buy more benefits at that time. No medical questions asked.
Protect your income, secure your future. Check out setforlifeinsurance.com. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. This is What Y'all Say Friday. This is an opportunity for you guys as the audience to ask me or Renee any question that you may have about anything related to locum tenens, what it's like to be a doc. If you want us to do residency role play like we did recently, but this is an opportunity for me and Renee to connect with y'all and find out what the pulse of the audience is. But things are a little bit different. Renee is sick, and we have a stand-in, a little bit more than just a stand-in. We have the person who keeps the light going. We have the person who keeps me and Renee in check. We have the person who keeps me accountable. We got Kiara, our business manager, on the show. Alfred, throw in the music. Put on the applause in the background, please. Kiara, what's up? Welcome to Docs Outside the Box. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you? That was an introduction there.
Yeah, you're usually in the background and stuff. So, you know, it'd be nice to... I wanted you to come on the show even before Renee got sick, because I think sometimes it's nice to have, the folks who are in the background to show their face, right? And I think sometimes you just need some new energy. And I think, it'd be great to kind of go back and forth with you. It'd be great for the audience to hear about you. And as a matter of fact, let's just bleed into that. Kiara, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience? Tell them what you do, where you from, how much you charge, all that stuff. Alfred, bleep out how much she charges, all right?
So I'm going to leave the charging part out. I don't know how to introduce myself. That's actually one of my...
Look at you all nervous. Guys, this is not Kiara normally, okay? Kiara normally is like, listen, you didn't do this advertisement. You ain't do this episode. Give me 3 push-ups, all these different things. Now you're like, I don't know what to say. Man,
I know. I wasn't expecting to be on here, though.
Listen, soldier.
On the back end,
Listen, soldier. Come on now.
Wait, hold on. I'm not a soldier. I'm a Marine.
I didn't even know there's a difference.
No, there is a difference. So soldiers are Army.
Okay.
And I'm not...
What about military? Military woman?
Yeah. That's fine.
Okay. So soldiers are the Army.
Yes. And I'm not the Army. It's the Marine Corps. Okay.
All right, good. Go ahead and tell us what's up. What's good?
I don't even know where to start, Nee.
Tell us what you do for Docs Outside the Box. How about that?
All right. So for Docs Outside the Box, I am the operations manager. I kind of just do the back end stuff. I'm basically like the primary point of contact before they schedule appointments with you, meetings with you. I make sure the podcast keeps running. I kind of keep you recording and on your toes, and just kind of keep touch with the rest of the team, and kind of just make sure everything flows.
I think one thing that people who are listening to the show, or folks who want to be influencers, I'm not saying that I'm an influencer, but folks who want to have a social media presence, a lot of times they don't understand like everything that goes on behind the scenes. So like talk to them about all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, in addition to being, to dealing with two people who are clinically, they're still doctors, moms, dads. What's that like?
So everyone is different. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, just to kind of keep things going. Outside of sitting down and recording, you have to make sure that makes it to the editor, and then you have to get with the rest of the team to make sure that they stay on top of the editor, make sure they get the snips out so that we can get their social media running. We got to get the newsletter out on time. It's a lot of moving parts. How is it overall with schedule wise? It depends on the week, the day, because life still happens. Mm-hmm. Some weeks we get things done. Some weeks are a little bit slower because we just got to slow down. We've got to take care of kids. We've got to take care of just life in general ourselves. So it varies.
So what do you think about what's going on right now? Because, there's a lot of stuff going on in the news, right? We're not going to talk too much about it, but obviously with the killing of the United Healthcare CEO, we got Blue Cross Blue Shield saying that anesthesiologists can't get paid for it. There's a lot of stuff in the news now that normally doesn't make it in the news, right? Like non-clinical type stuff. So from your perspective, how do you like absorb all of this? What are your thoughts?
I tried, I'm going to be honest with you, I kind of stay away from the news. It can get a little overwhelming, especially with social media, because everything's constantly coming at you from all different types of angles. So I kind of get my news in snippets. I try not to deep dive. What my thoughts are.
You're a local news type person, or you're a newspaper type person, or you podcast? How do you get your news?
Conversations. So I will have conversations with, a friend, my husband. Will just have these conversations, and it'll be like, and then that'll be like, oh, let me go Google it. Let me go look at it. Let me go do some research. That's kind of how I get it. If you don't tell me about it, I don't know. I might come across it on social media. But like you said, that's because there's something constantly going on. It's news. It's constant. It's like never ending, if that makes sense.
Because we're about a month out from the election. And I think for the first time ever, like we can literally say like this election, this political season was like driven by podcasts. Like there's so many different, like this is like the first podcast election, right? Like you have like, Trump going on Rogan and that making a big deal. Or some people saying that doesn't make a big deal at all. Kamala Harris saying that she's not going on the show for some reasons that we will never know why and stuff. And some people saying, well, that's a possible reason why she lost and so forth. But in general, I think it's crazy to see how many people rely on podcasts for their knowledge, for their news. And then you could just lump that in together with social media. Shit's kind of crazy. Because as much as I like to talk to people and, we try to vet information, like I don't have a journalism degree, right? Like I'm speaking, I'm not shooting from the hip, so to speak, but I'm just a regular, I'm a doctor, and I am telling people about what happens to us on a weekly basis, about what's going on with our taxes, what's going on with our finances, what's going on in the podcast, and where we see like business with medicine in general. But like, am I necessarily an expert? And I think that, talking to coworkers who, like, for example, like they are all about like Robert Kennedy and what he said on the Joe Rogan show. And I'm like, but like, he's not like an expert, right? Like he's not really an expert.
Here's the thing, Donnie. The thing with experts is, are experts really experts?
Correct.
Or are we just giving them that title, right? Because these are just people who have opinions just like us.
You going into my point. I love it. Keep going. Yeah.
And then they have these ideas and people kind of run with them because they can relate, or they have the same general idea as well. But an expert is not really an expert. It's just somebody who specializes in something.
If that's even the case.
Right.
Someone who can convince you that they are an expert.
Right.
Right. Because I talk about like I think I'm on my 5th CPA. Right. And just because you know just because you know taxes doesn't mean you know how to explain taxes, doesn't mean that you will do a good job. Right. So like an expert is an expert is an expert. What the hell does that mean, really? So like I know people who like have made their political decisions of who are they going to vote for based off of a podcast, which is, to me, is crazy. But then
I think
again,
that's kind of the new standard, right? Because that it's what's changing. People are listening to podcasts now. You have to kind of tailor to the demographic.
Yes. People listen to podcasts now. They want to explain to them in an audio or a video version. They want to be entertained. They don't want to, it's like, but if you think about it, there's so much information out there. It's like, well, how can you really research all this?
You can't. You can't research it, but also you have to, the way the election, I guess, went this year, the fact that it was even podcast related at all is because that was the attempt to become relatable to the new demographic. People are constantly on the go. People are constantly listening to stuff. So like, I don't sit there and watch TV. I don't watch, back then it was like we sit down, we watch the news, we watch the election, everybody sits down and watches it. And I'm not saying that nobody's watching it. We're just saying that we're also tailoring it to those that aren't watching it, those that prefer to listen on the go.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think we're just in a different age right now. And, I just think the gatekeepers are different, right? Like when we were growing up, or at least when I'm growing up, because I'm way older than you, like the only way you can get your news is from what, ABC, NBC, CBS, you laughing, but it's the truth, right? You see this hairline, right? Right. And newspapers. And now like podcasts are the new version of those things, or YouTubers or bloggers. They're the new version of those things. It's just that they don't necessarily have journalism degrees. The question, though, is just because you have a journalism degree, does that make you the person who should be the gatekeeper of keeping all that information? I don't know, but that's the way it is right now. So that's why we're here. No matter where you are in your career, you've seen patients your age or younger get seriously injured, have a long-term illness, or even have a mental health issue that affects their ability to work. Now, what if that was you? No, for real, what if that was you? Without disability insurance, how are you going to replace your paycheck? In episode 176, Jamie Fleischner of Set for Life Insurance explains why the best time to buy disability insurance is during your residency.
Most physicians acquire their disability policies during residency, and there's several reasons. First of all, when you're younger, you're able to obtain the insurance because they ask you a whole host of medical history. And so you usually don't get healthier over time. Usually you get less healthy over time. So when you're healthy, it's easier to acquire the coverage. Number two, it's also less expensive because it's based on your age and your health. You're not getting younger or healthier over time. So you're at the ideal time. The earlier you get it and the younger you are, the less expensive it's going to be.
So whether you're a resident or you're an attending, it's never too late to protect your income. Renee and I, we use Set for Life Insurance to find a disability policy that fit our needs and budget. So what are you waiting for? Check out setforlifeinsurance.com. Once again, that's setforlifeinsurance.com. I love podcasting. We are, this is 2024. So now we are 8 years into doing Docs Outside the Box. And, we transitioned from just interviewing other doctors to now we talk about what we are interested in and what the audience writes in and so forth. And you've been with us now, 3 years now?
We're going on 3 years.
Going on 3 years. Yeah. Yeah. So folks, I hired Kiara because I felt like I was stagnating from a business perspective, and I just needed that jolt from a business perspective, from like just how we work with business. I needed someone to kind of handle all that. And she's been great. And these last 6 or 7 months have been quite tough for me. So I'm just going to, just be a little bit vulnerable. But when the election, when Kamala Harris was talking about the sandwich generation, like, that's me, right? Like, I think a lot of people, you see me as a trauma surgeon and you think, oh, it's just money bags and all that stuff. And it's like, no, because, like I have my wife and my kids that I'm taking care of, right? That's on one end. And then I have my parents that I'm taking care of. And, I grew up low middle class, right? So, we have to be really miserly with, my parents' expenses to figure out how we can best take care of them. Also, at the same time, like, I have to take care of my kids. Like, so it's a tough balance to figure out how do you take care of parents who are elderly, who can't make that many decisions for themselves, who may need a little bit of some financial assistance for normal things like paying for the house or, groceries and stuff. So when she was mentioning that they were going to do some things, make some changes to Medicare, where it may make it easier for the elderly to get help, right? I think a lot of times when people think about the help that you would get for the elderly, a lot of times people think about Medicaid. And if anybody knows, if you don't know, I'm going to let you know right now, like if you want to sign up for Medicaid, in essence, you have to be in poverty, right? So you may have to sell your parents' house. Your parents may have to deplete all of their resources. You have to be poor so that the government can take, so the United States government can take care of you. And that's tough, right? That's really tough. So, I was really paying attention to that. And in essence, that was swaying me a lot in how I voted. But, unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen now. But that's where I'm at. So I just want folks to understand, we talk about finances and we talk about podcasting and doing locums and all that. But we just like any regular, 40-something couple that has parents that are aging and we got to take care of them. And sometimes you struggle with how you're going to get help and how you're going to get assistance and how you're going to finance things and how you're going to split from being on call to finishing on call to go and take care of them. It's tough.
It's leaving one thing from leaving from one thing to another. So you leave work to come home to still take care of the kids in the house and, your relationship, your parents. It's the stretch you have. You are very
it's tough.
Stretched.
It's tough. It's tough. And it plays out in so many different ways. And I think, I think a lot of folks, like when you look at the demographics of med students, obviously it skews to the upper middle class, / rich and so forth. So I don't know if this is an issue for them, but I think, folks who look like me, folks who look like you, the demographics, these are folks who are going to be the breadwinners for their own families, but a lot of times could be the breadwinners for the entire family, right? Like the immediate and nuclear family. And that puts a burden. And then you throw on top of that student loans, right? And then you throw on top of that, like people aren't getting paid the way they want to get paid. If you're a woman and you're a doctor, or if you're a woman and you're in healthcare, like there's a possibility that you're going to be making like 20-30% less than your male counterpart who's doing the same exact job with the same exact experience. So there's a lot of shit out there to fight against. So
how does that work, right? So how does it work as a woman and a doctor Black doctor, person of color? How does that work for locums tenens?
So it's funny. Like, I don't think, although, like, I'll be really honest with you, like, I don't think it plays a part or a role, right? I just think that where it could rear its ugly head. Let me slow down. Where it could rear its ugly head is the inability to negotiate. If you haven't been raised in an environment where you feel comfortable negotiating what your hourly rate is going to be, if somebody comes back to you and says, hey, Dr. Kiara, like you are worth $100 to do X job as a family medicine doctor. But then you find out that a male doctor is being paid $120 for the same job and the same experience. If you don't have the tools, if you weren't raised with the tools to one, find out that there's a difference in how you get paid. And then two, you don't know exactly what to do after that, right? Like you don't have the lingo, the language, you don't know the roads that you need to take to find out how you can get yourself from $100 to $120, right? Like it takes some sense of pocket watching. But yeah, like how would you know that, right? So that's why I think me and Renee, like we really talk on the show, like, yo, like you guys need to be negotiating. If someone presents to you a locums contract of $100, then you may want to bump that up by like 20%, right? Instead of just accepting $100, just right off the rip, just say, yo, I'll do it for 120, right? Or 130. And you got to advocate for yourself and just be prepared that they're going to push back on you. But just because they push back on you is not personal. Like all of this stuff too. Like I think that's the other thing too. People think that this is personal, and it's not personal. It's just business, right?
So how common is it for doctors in general to talk about how much they make
with each other? I think it's very uncommon. I think most doctors in general do not tell each other how much they make. And I think that that's part of the whole process of I'm applying to medical school. It's very competitive. As a college student, I'm not going to talk about my grades to my classmate because they're a potential competitor. When I get into medical school, I'm not going to talk about how I did on my classes because one, I don't want to be judged. And two, I'm competing with my classmates. I don't want them to know that, maybe I'm in the B range and I'm trying to get into surgery, and I have this perception that everybody who's applying to surgery is getting straight A's and so forth and has killed their board. So if I mention that, then I'm going to be judged a certain way. I'm not saying that's the case all the time, but that was my case, right? I didn't talk about it. When folks don't talk, and, you know, that's kind of been ingrained in you since, you know, we're talking about 10, 12 years of that same type of behavior. Yeah. Then you get into residency and you're competing against your fellow residents. And then as you become an attending, it's like, well, I'm here. I'm happy to be here. I got this job. But you could be at a significant disadvantage. Like, I think Renee talks about a story where, you know, one of her counterparts, one of her coworkers, who's a woman who's like 10 years, 15 years her senior, found out that she was getting paid like, I think like $100,000 less than a male who just got the job, who didn't have as much experience as her, like $100,000. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but it was above 50K. Wow. Right. So but if you don't find out, you multiply that by 10 years, 15 years.
That's a lot of money you're missing out on.
Yeah. What, millions of dollars. Right. Then you throw on top of that, if you have children,
yes,
as a woman, right? So there's some time where you're out of the market, right? You're not making money. You're not putting money towards your retirement fund. You know, I can see the pressures for women to like, yo, I'm having this child and I'm taking as little maternity leave as possible and I'm jumping right back into this, you know.
But isn't that like that's the pro of locum tenens though, right? Because then you don't have to have that inner war with yourself on being, or a parent, even a dad, and missing out on things, right?
Well, so yeah. So I get what you're saying. Basically, what it boils down to is you create your own schedule, right? So yeah. Let's say, for example, what it takes for you to be a good dad is you need to be around your kids like on a week-to-week basis. Then maybe you do something where you work like 2.5 weeks in a row, and then you have 2.5 weeks off, so that you can be with the kids and be Dr. Dad and all those different things and be, you know, a good spouse and so forth. Or, you know, that's 1 week on, 1 week off, or it's 4 days straight and then 5 days off. Like, you get to kind of create your type of schedule that works really good for you. And then, you know, like, whenever you work is how you get paid. Right. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to take time off, you just have to do that math with yourself. So I think it's a little bit easier, I think, if you're locums, for lifestyle, whether you're a man or whether you're a woman. That's how I look at it. So that's a good question, though.
Okay. So I know we did have a listener question come in about placing locums. Mm-hmm. And I believe her name was Karen. And her question was...
What kind of Karen is she? No, I'm teasing. Karens, you got to be careful.
Her question was... She said she loves the podcast, have turned on many other locum tenens docs to the podcast, but she only works locum tenens. She wanted to know if you and Renee have gotten to the point of placing locum tenens. She is a 28-year experienced CPNP.
Give me the question again.
Have you guys gotten to the point of placing locum tenens?
So yes, we've worked with locum tenens before. You know, we've worked. So me and Renee actually have a company, and the company in essence is run by me and her. And it is of me and her. So what I mean by that is, like, we work, and I work at a hospital, and when the hospital pays, they don't pay me. They don't pay Renee by name. They pay our business. Then our business gives a salary to me and Renee. And then that's how we make it work. But for several years, and this was amazing time, we actually ran an OB department as locum tenens. We had a contract with a hospital, and we provided locum tenens. We provided about 7 OB docs to a department, and they did their OB stuff with a family medicine program. And that means we created the schedule, which was amazing. That means we did all the timesheets. That means that we, you know, paid the doctors. We did all the things that you need to do from a tax standpoint. We got out all the 1099s. We did all the negotiations with the hospital. And that was great. We did it for about a good 3.5 years. It was a lot of work. And there was a lot of times where I'm in between cases trying to make it work. But yeah, we did that. But we don't do that. We're not currently doing that right now. It doesn't mean that we don't want to do it, but we're just not currently doing that right now. So yes, we've worked with locum tenens docs. We've sent them places. The only thing that we're not doing right now is we're not working with professionals that are not doctors at this point. But there are a lot of locum tenens companies out there that are working with nurse practitioners, nurse anesthetists. There are even nurse practitioners who've started their own locums companies and are kind of making it happen their way also. So it's a good question.
Okay.
And what was her full question? She wanted to know, where is it?
So it was a 2-part question, which you already asked. You already answered. She asked, are y'all hiring NPs as locum tenens providers? But you just said no. So you already answered.
No. And not because, we don't want to, but it's, we just don't have the opportunity at this time right now. Like how you hire nurse practitioners is a little bit different than how you work with locum tenens doctors. A little bit different because you have to, the way how I could describe it is sometimes nurse practitioners can be agnostic to specialty. What I mean by that is like if you have a trauma surgeon, then like they're only going to be doing trauma surgery or general surgery, or OBs are just going to be, that what doesn't need to be explained. Whereas nurse practitioners, you can have nurse practitioners who have really extensive training in one specialty, but just say, hey, I just want to be a nurse practitioner for something else, right? Same thing with physician assistants, right? Physician assistants can go between any type of specialty that they want to. It's just they need to have a doctor who's going to supervise them. That's all. So, but yeah.
So it gets a little complicated?
It could get a little bit more complicated. Okay. It's not that it can't be done. It's just that at this point, we're not doing that right now. But, I think it's a good question. If you have any other questions, Karen, just let me know or let us know and we'll be happy to answer it for you. The question I have for Karen actually is, how long have you been doing locum tenens? And 2, when you work as a locum tenens doc, right? When you work for yourself or when you work as an independent contractor, are you working with a locums company or are you doing it by yourself, right? So are you contracting directly with the hospital? That's what I'd like to know, because I think that plays a big role. That's a big difference.
Okay, not bad. That was the only question for today because that was a 2-part for her.
That's it?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. So, listen, that's in essence, is how we want, folks to be asking us questions. Just submit us some questions and, we will answer it to the best of our ability. We do more than just locums, guys. We just got a house and eventually we're going to do an episode on our, I can't say that because this is still under litigation, but eventually we're going to talk about our, trials and tribulations getting a house. So we have a tenant upstairs. We love it. He's a good guy. And we're making it run like a business. But there's some things that I think you all will be wanting to be interested at. And just know that the best way I could describe it is I can't say it. I just can't talk about it right now.
Can't say it. Well, how about if we talk about the course? Kind of do a little circle of the course. We have a course about locum tenens.
Yes. Talk that stuff, Kiara. Tell them. Because if I tell her, you guys think I'm the worst. You guys think I'm the worst describer of it. So tell them. We are working on the course though, right? We're working on the course to help provide us, with the options just to kind of open it up that there are other options out there aside from traditional medicine. You're able to work for yourself. It's the only
option. Reach your own hours.
Kiara, it's the only option. It's the only option. Listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like we created this course mainly because I truly feel like sometimes people will say, well, why are you creating this course? What's the benefit for you? In my opinion, as I always say, like I could be very extreme about this. I think every doctor should be a locum tenens. Every doctor, because I think there's a lot of people. I go through Twitter and I'm watching all of these people give comments on the United Healthcare issue. I hear people give comments on, just different issues that they have with healthcare and like the business of healthcare. And basically, if you boil it down to what's the main issue, at least from a doctor perspective, is they don't have control. Right. And I just want to let people know, like, you're not going to have control. Like once this got corporatized several years ago, decades ago, that's it. right? So, there's a certain level of wiggle room that you have as a clinician to say that, hospital X says A, and I believe that I'm going to move in direction B, or insurance company says they're going to pay for this and I'm going to do it despite that. Like, there's only so much room that you can do, particularly when you're employed. That's how I feel about it. When you're employed, like you're a company person. That's it. You're wearing the scrubs.
It's true. It's
you're wearing the scrubs.
True.
Yeah, you're wearing the scrubs, or you're wearing the white coat that has their company's name on it, right? So, that's how it works. But if you want to be on your own, there's certain sacrifices that you're going to give that you may have to take. Like there may be a little bit of uncertainty, but that's with any business, right? Like if an agent for sports, if you have an agent who's normally with a big company or a big firm decides, I'm going to do things on my own. I feel like I can, represent my clients and my athletes better than, said firm. There's going to be a little bit of some uncertainty at first, but then eventually you figure it out. You get your clientele that wants to work with you because they see how you work. It's the same thing with locum tenens. Like if you want the control, if you talk about all these different things that I see a lot of y'all talk about on Twitter, then the best way to get that control back, the best way to control your schedule, the best way to make sure that you're getting paid what you think you're getting paid, the best way for you to be at home with your family as much as you think you need to be at home with your family, the best way for you to advocate for your patients is to make sure that there's a separation between the hospital, the clinic, and then you, right? Like, to me, being an independent contractor is the first step and the second step that you need to take. That's how I feel. Like, I just feel like there's a lot of people who do a lot of bloviating and talking and saying, I'm going to do this and all that stuff. And it's like, but if the hospital said
the course
you're
helps
fired,
bridge that gap, right? The course kind of helps explain what locums is and how to get it done, how to get started.
Step by step.
Bridge the gap.
Step by
okay.
step.
All right.
Yeah, step by step. Look at you trying to reel me in because I get on my soapbox and be talking, yo. Yeah. But yeah, we got something that I think step by step, it'll help you guys understand the concepts and then, be able to really finish the course and be able to get a contract on your own or, work properly with a locum tenens company and be able to represent and advocate for yourself and get the money that you want to get and get the control that you need. Boom.
All right. And how many years combined experience do you and Renee have?
So when you do that, does that mean like how many years I've done it plus how many years she's done it or just like concurrently? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So like if we've done it for if I've done it for 10 years and then she's done it for 12 years, is that 24 years? Or is that we just go with the higher amount of 12 years? I don't understand how that works.
That is a good question. I don't know.
We just gonna go over 24 years, y'all. 24 years experience of doing locum tenens, of negotiating, of walking away from contracts, of accepting contracts. Like right now, Renee's in negotiations right now where she's trying to decide should she be locums or should she be per diem, which is different, right? Per diem is if you are, you actually are employed, but you still control your schedule. But there's some benefits that you lose, but there's just certain things. We're not all 100% locums all the time. Sometimes we may switch and kind of wiggle and
the point is that there are options out there, and there are options that people don't know are out there.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right.
All right.
All right, y'all. Once again, this is an episode with Kiara. Kiara, thank you again for coming on the show. We appreciate it. I hope you do it again. I really enjoy the energy that you bring. So
I plan to. I'll be back. I got to keep you on your toes,
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And folks, if you want to write us a question, you can send us a message on Instagram at Docs Outside the Box Podcast. You can send us a message on email at team@drneedarko.com. What are the other ways? There's also fan mail. If you go to the show notes below, just click on fan mail and text us your questions. There's also a phone number in the text message, or excuse me, in the show notes where you can text us some information about or some questions about what you have and go from there.
We read all the comments that are sent in, all the YouTube comments, Instagram comments, Facebook, and everything.
And if it takes me a while, it's because Kiara's taking a long time to get those messages to me. All right, y'all. We're going to catch you guys on the next episode, y'all. Peace.